Life sucks. I'm getting hunted by humans. I lost a couple of good friends. Life couldn't just get any worse. Hello there, my name is Stinger, and I'm inspired by you, but better in every way. I'll show you better. What's going on, everybody? Republic Cinema here, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at this knockoff of the Transformers Studio Series 87, I think is the number, Dark of the Moon Bumblebee. Unfortunately, no official Studio Series High Octane Bumblebee exists other than that reissue of this figure, which is an old, outdated mainline, and I think needs an update. The High Octane Bumblebee design is pretty underrated, so seeing its old mold would be great. And hey, if they could pull it off, perhaps reshell the Studio Series 49 Bumblebee mold. But again, it would have been cooler if it was its own mold. Now, this figure is a knockoff from another type of knockoff company that I've never heard of before. But in case you ever scroll down on Amazon and come across a knockoff listing for the Studio Series Dark of the Moon Bumblebee, I believe that's the same knockoff company that did a repaint of this Dark of the Moon Bumblebee knockoff. And I gotta say, this is a cool repaint. The color scheme for Bumblebee has always been predominantly yellow, but the times when Bumblebee's color scheme is predominantly black, let's just say his color scheme looks a little underrated. But before we take a look at the figure, let's take a quick look at this guy's interesting packaging. So starting off with the front of the packaging, as you can see, it's this bubble plastic that is engulfing the front. And the rest is all words, names, and logos, along with that nice CG artwork of Bumblebee. Speaking of that CG render of Bumblebee, here he is on the top. And then you turn to the bottom and it's boring again. On the right side is more info on what you get inside the packaging, only with the normal yellow paint scheme. Also on the bottom you get info of what this figure comes with. And then on the left side is a more zoomed out look to Bumblebee's CGI design. And then you turn to the back and you get a few pictures of this figure in robot mode and alt mode, aside from some words, names, and logos. And I think that's pretty much it for the packaging. Now moving back to the figure. So starting off, painting and sculpting is pretty good. The painting is great, but the sculpting is not the same type of printing as seen with this figure. As a matter of fact, it looks worse. As you can see, here's what the arm on the knockoff looks like, and here's what the arm on the original Hasbro toy looks like. As you can see, both arms are completely different from each other, and same thing with the heads actually. So overall, I'm not too impressed by how accurate the printing is to the official Hasbro product. But on the other hand, for the paint, I gotta say it looks pretty cool. The kibble is pretty much the same, and the QC on at least my copy is not all that great. On one hand, you have an arm guard that doesn't want to close in 100%, and the right arm also appears to be loose. When the thigh guards fold in, they don't snap into anything, they just basically stay there, and it kind of looks weird. But other than that, I suppose this figure is alright. Much like the original, this knockoff also has clear plastic on the doors and on the legs over here. But since this is a knockoff, of course this figure is supposed to have die-cast metal parts, which are located on the spoiler pieces. And now moving on to accessories. So starting off with his normal arm cannon, which does kind of look like the normal one, but I suppose you could spot some differences here and there. But nevertheless, the arm cannon goes on the left arm and doesn't necessarily stay in too well. And since there's no smaller tab on this big tab right here, it cannot tab onto that back piece, unlike in the original. I'm not too sure why they would remove that, as that was the only source of weapon storage for this accessory. Until now. The next accessory he comes with is just this arm blade, which snaps in onto either side of the arm with that hole. I'd like to point out that it is not an easy thing to do, and it overall looks useless since all it does, I suppose, would puncture something by the slightest, since there's not much blade sticking out. He also comes with this battle mask, which is basically the Bumblebee movie battle mask, or the inaccurate version, I guess. Snapping the head off of the body is a bit of a pain, but you can also swap the head out for this evil Bumblebee head, I suppose. Or maybe Bumblebee is just in overkill mode. Almost forgot Bumblebee turned evil for a few seconds in the Bumblebee movie, so I think that's what this head sculpt is trying to reference. He comes with this big hammer, doesn't stay on the hand that well, and lastly he comes with two interesting swords, which also don't stay in his hands all that well, but they stay in better than the hammer. And that's pretty much all of his accessories. most of them I feel were pretty lame. But anyways, it's time we move on to articulation. Starting off, ball joint at the head, which can allow the head to move up and down and rotate from left to right. The wings move out. Since the shoulder is pretty much on a ball joint and a hinge joint, it can shift upwards and downwards. Bend at the shoulder, bend at the elbow, elbow swivel. Not a really good elbow swivel, no thanks to the wings in the back. No wrist swivel, but there is some waist swivel. The legs can spread, leg can move forward, can also move backwards. Bend at the knee, knee swivel, and that's pretty much as far as articulation goes. But if you want to make your own custom articulation, you got to remove this front piece, and then you would have an unintentional side-to-side joint for the foot. Also untab this entire foot from this assembly, and you have an unintentional upwards and downwards movement for the foot. And yeah, that's pretty much it for articulation. Now I think it's time we move on to size comparison, starting off with the original Studio Series Dark of the Moon Bumblebee, 07 Bumblebee, 15th Anniversary 07 Bumblebee, Revenge of the Fallen Bumblebee, Dark of the Moon Core Class B, the Takara Tomy version of the Age of Extinction High Octane Bumblebee, the Studio Series reissue of the Last Night Mainline Deluxe Class Bumblebee, Stinger, KSI Sentry, or Trax, Drift, Crosshairs, Dark of the Moon Ratchet, Movie Advanced Lost Age Ratchet, which is Age of Extinction affiliated, Hound, Evasion Mode Prime, Night Prime, and lastly here he is next to the Studio Series Grimlock. And now here he is next to the rest of the gang from Age of Extinction. As you can see, Crosshairs, Drift, and Grimlock have their Studio Series versions. As for the rest, I can't say the same. It would be great for Hasbro to make an official Studio Series High Octane Bumblebee with its own mold, and completely new molds for the Evasion Mode Optimus Prime and Hound. Oh, and Grimlock needs his buddies. We're missing all three of them. And I guess we're also missing Brains, since he also appeared in Transformers Age of Extinction, and a Battle Damaged Ratchet, and a Battle Damaged Leadfoot. Let me know in the comments which Autobot from Age of Extinction you would like to see be made in the Studio Series next. And now we move on to Transformation, which is a bit of a pain, but I shall guide you through the process. Starting off, fold open these pieces and unfold this entire back section as well as this tiny panel right here. Fold in the arm guards. The one on the right side has already done it for me. Move them forward like so, and then keep them up for now, as we're going to focus on the legs. So starting off, rotate this entire waist, and then rotate both of the legs, focusing on one leg for now. Untab the feet, move it outwards like so, and then slide it forward until it is unable to move forward. Move this piece out, untab this, also move this clear plastic piece outwards like so. Close this whole assembly in, and then close it inwards like so. Pushing this whole section in whilst dodging this piece right here is not an easy thing to do. But once you've got that over with, all you got to do is tab that in, rotate the shin backwards, and close it in right there. Once you've got the other leg fully transformed, what you're going to do next is, before tabbing these two pieces together, you got to make sure that those tabs right there, tab in right there, and then tab everything else in like so. And there you have the back done. Now moving on to the top side, this is where things get a little hard. Starting off, what you will do is untab this chest and move it upwards, push this piece down, shift this whole section downwards, and also rotate the arm, close this whole section inwards, and while you do that, make sure the arm is downwards. Same thing for the other arm. Push both assemblies downwards like so, which will allow you to shift this whole section forwards. Make sure it moves all the way forwards. Make sure you push it in, such as make sure that that piece is beside the clear plastic parts. Next thing you're going to want to do is untab both sides of the chest and move them upwards, and then close them in like so, and then move these chest pieces upwards. After that, close this in, close the arm inwards, and then close this whole door section inwards like so. And there's one side of the car done. Just make sure you do the same thing for the other side. And lastly, all you're going to do is close that piece inwards. And here you have the knockoff repaint of Bumblebee in his car mode. This is the Chevrolet Camaro, which is a pretty cool car, but looks underrated with a predominant black paint. If it had the same paint scheme as that old 1960s Camaro mode that Bumblebee transformed into an Age of Extinction, then that also would be pretty great. but there's other knockoffs that have a similar paint scheme. This one doesn't, but it still looks great. As I do appreciate the stripes on the top, and the stripes on the spoiler. Also, that back looks clean too. The yellow stripes on the side also look nice. And for weapon storage, unlike the robot mode, the car mode does retain the weapon storage for the arm cannon. Not sure why the knockoff company got rid of that on the robot mode, but either way, glad they didn't on the car mode. Now, to store all his other accessories in car mode, I can't say the same. But now for a brief comparison, here he is alongside the original Studio Series Dark of the Moon Bumblebee, and here he is next to the original High Octane Bumblebee. You can see how they pair alongside each other, which is pretty much this figure and this figure put together, and I think the knockoff company did a pretty good job at it. But anyways, let me know in the comments which car mode you like more. And I think that's pretty much it. I think that's all I had to say for this guy. Overall, pretty good repaint of a KO. Not so good of a quality, or at least for my copy. If you are looking to pick this figure up, he is available over at AliExpress for as little as less than $20. I hope Hasbro makes an official Studio Series High Octane Bumblebee that is its own mold. However, we might not see that anytime soon, but at some point in time, it's gotta happen. But anyways, if you like what you saw in this video, be sure to slam that like button, share this with your friends as well, turn on post notifications so that way you don't miss another upload. Let me know how I did in this video, and most importantly, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. See ya!